Tonight on To The Point. The largest and one of the most controversial dam removal projects in the world is happening right now at our state line, causing years of controversy.
It isn't that we haven't been heard. They've heard us. They've just flat out ignored us.
We are not divided. We are bound by the river. I want to believe that when the river heals itself, that we as humans will also feel that healing.
Tonight in an ABC 10 Originals investigation, what's causing confusion, conflict, and divisiveness among Klamath River communities. Good evening. As always, thank you so much for joining us on To The Point. I'm Alex Bell, and we start tonight with an ABC 10 Originals investigation. The Klamath Dam's removal project is supposed to restore more than 400 miles of fish habitat, but its decades-long approval process has caused tension between Native American tribes and residents along the Klamath River. So ABC 10's John Bartel has been traveling up north to Siskiyou County for a year now, and over the past few months has been reporting on the projects and the conflicts. And John, in all, 4 dams are being removed, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And some of these dams are over 100 years old, and they don't provide any irrigation or flood control. They only produce a small amount of electricity. These dams are privately owned by power company Pacificor, who chose to remove the dams instead of update them. And so far, it's taken more than 20 years for federal regulators to approve this project.
Iron Gate Dam. It smells.
Unbelievable. Look at the color.
Stop. Please cease and desist. You are actually hurting us.
As with any big project, there's often conflict and confusion.
It's almost like cultural genocide. The water quality issues that dams create.
It's a new day and it's a new era for California tribes.
And in the case for the largest dam removal project in the world,
drawdown has officially begun for Copco 1.
The conflict and confusion played out on social media, creating deep division. In January of 2024, demolition crews blasted holes in the side of 2 of the 4 dams scheduled for removal.
We're over a week into this and we got, looks like black motor oil.
As the reservoirs drained, a rush of brown sediment was sent down the Klamath. On one side, the blasts were a monumental moment for environmentalists and indigenous tribes like the Yurok, who have been fighting for over 20 years to bring down the 4 dams on the Klamath and open up more than 400 miles of fish habitat.
It happened because there was really strong leadership at the Yurok tribe.
But downriver of the blasts in Wairika,
we may never have salmon in the river again.
That anger played out on social media.
This is a self-inflicted gunshot wound courtesy of gangrene.
And then turned into outright shouting and demands at City Hall.
With all due respect, it's time to take action, sir.
Declare a state of emergency.
Yeah. It's time to take action.
Despite local disapproval, deconstruction of the dams moved forward. And as the water turned darker, so did the emotions.
It isn't that we haven't been heard. They've heard us. They've just flat out ignored us.
A lot of folks didn't think we'd ever get dam removal over the finish line, and now it's happening, and we're in a super visual stage.
Ren Brownell is a spokesperson with the Klamath River Renewal Corporation, or KRRC, the independent nonprofit put in charge by lawmakers to remove the dams and restore the land along the Klamath.
We're seeing a lot of these sediments travel downstream, and while water quality has really improved now, back in January, we did see some fish mortality. And then also what was expected is that all of the non-native fish that lived in the reservoir, they died.
The KRRC is made up of about 15 board members and about 6 staff members. Along with managing the world's largest dam removal project, it's the KRRC's job to respond to local residents' concerns.
And I think a challenge in a rural area is how to get communications out to folks. And so we do Facebook, because that's the most popular social media in rural areas, and then we send out a lot of letters.
At a small print shop in Wairika, Jay Martin reviews the latest edition of Siskiyou News.
Siskiyou News started out as an online platform, Facebook-based. It got to the point where we need to go back to a physical print.
The former truck driver publishes, prints, and hand delivers a 4 to 5 page paper every week. He says his county is in sort of a news desert. The mainstream media rarely gives his community a voice.
Covering the dam removal has been hard. I'm not on their team.
The team that Jay is talking about is the KRRC. He and many of the paper's volunteer writers are against the dam removals.
As a news source, I just want to say this is the facts.
If you read through the Siskiyou News, you'll rarely see interviews from the KRRC. That's partly because the KRRC has accused them of printing misinformation.
Have you invited them out?
I have not invited them out, not since they made it very clear to me that they were going to publish misinformation no matter what. And they've never asked either, so.
One of the paper's contributors who writes about the dams is William Simpson, a wild horse advocate who manages a herd of wild horses right above the Iron Gate Dam.
And that's why I'm very concerned about the ecology of the Klamath River. You know, if we have toxins in the river, I have to wonder what's that going to do to these horses, and they're such a precious species.
The toxins that William is worried about are heavy metals in the sediments that build up behind the dam. Now, heavy metals do flow down the river naturally, but William says that high concentration of those metals have piled up in the reservoirs over 60 years.
We're talking about lead, chromium, cadmium, aluminum.
This is what a lot of residents are seeing. They're a little concerned that you're dumping in the water here.
Sure.
Yeah, this is a part of the plan?
This is part of the plan, and there's nothing to be concerned about.
Dave Kaufman is with Resource Environmental Solutions, or RES, the contractor hired to repair and replant the barren landscape where the reservoirs once were. Dave says the sediment they're dumping into the water is part of a stream restoration project, and putting it into the river is actually beneficial.
Decades of testing, hundreds if not thousands of samples, multiple federal agencies, all said, this sediment's great, send it down the river.
There are fish dead in the river.
Fear of the reservoir's sediment started with images of dead fish and stranded wildlife. Residents ultimately pushed Siskiyou County supervisors to pay for an independent water test of the river. To be clear, the Klamath River is not a source of public drinking water, but when Siskiyou County released the results from their independent water test, they reported levels of heavy metals like aluminum, chromium, and lead to be over the county's standard drinking water limits. The KRRC doesn't deny that trace amounts of metals were found in the county's water tests, but they say those trace amounts of metals are only temporary.
We never questioned Siskiyou County's results, right? They were done by qualified water quality technicians and they were sent to a reputable lab. It was more so the interpretation of those results.
Interpreting heavy metal water samples is extremely complex.
This is data from the raw water. This is not the data from the water you drink.
That's why we took Siskiyou County's water test results to water treatment specialist and Sacramento State Assistant Professor Tongren Ju.
So when you had the drawdown, it's very likely your fresh water comes in. So the sediments, I made my fresh water, some of them get released out. And probably that's the reason why you see an elevated concentration of some of the heavy metals.
Continual data collection is exactly what government regulators, the KRRC, and Siskiyou County are doing. Current water quality data shows clarity and contaminations in the Klamath River have significantly improved, but long-term data is still needed to truly interpret the health of the river. To keep all that buildup of sediment from constantly muddying up the river water, a massive revegetation effort is underway.
You know, tribal members have been fighting for their right, for their sovereignty to be on this river. So yeah, it's pretty special to be here now.
Richard Green is one of the many indigenous tribal workers hired to make their way through the acres of mud and muck to replant native trees and shrubs. We visited Richard and his crew in March of 2024. Just a few months later, those seeds that they were planting started to grow.
Doing the restoration is important, but who does the restoration is just as important.
Amy Bowers-Cordalis is legal counsel with the Yurok tribe and a board member of the KRRC. It's her mission to make sure that Indigenous people remain involved in the dam removal, and that the involvement not only includes restoring the land, but restoring relationships with locals.
I want to believe that when the river heals itself, that we as humans will also feel that healing.
With any big project, there's often conflict and confusion, but in the case of the world's largest dam removal project, we really don't know how the river will respond until after the dams are completely removed.
All right, and John Bartel bringing us this very important reporting. But John, before you go, I have to ask you, has there been any other dam removals in recent years that might give us an idea whether or not restoration efforts will actually work?
Yeah, there's actually 2 dams that were taken out on the Elwha River. That's over in Washington State there, and they were removed in 2014. And in our next series, we're going to be taking a look at how that river recovered, and that'll be in our Part 3 series this fall.
All right, John Bartel, thank you so much. Always a joy to see you, too. And don't forget that you can watch John's previous reporting on the dam removal on our ABC 10 Plus streaming app. That app is free on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. All right, we still have a lot ahead coming up onto the point. So after the break, dozens evacuate as the Crozier fire burns through El Dorado County, the latest on the wildfire.
Highs today in the low 90s inland for Sacramento, upper 90s, Oroville, Marysville, Stockton, Modesto. But will this heat continue, and for how long? Coming up.
And later, we catch up with a woman building tiny homes in her backyard. Tonight, she shares a personal message to help other women. Welcome back. Right now, we are tracking the Crozier fire burning out in El Dorado County since starting yesterday morning. CAL FIRE says it has already burned more than 1,500 acres. It is currently at 5% containment. And at this hour, evacuation orders remain in effect for Garden Valley, Georgetown, Volcanoville, Mosquito, Quintet, and Swansboro areas. Evacuation warnings are also in place in the areas east and southwest of the fire, so make sure that you do take note of that. And ABC 10's Devin Truby spent the day checking in with evacuees and has more tonight with how crews are working to fight this fire.
And here is the air attack from CAL FIRE on the Crozier fire. That is just one of 5 helicopters that has been filling up here at Finnan Reservoir and then heading to the firefight. CAL FIRE saying this fire is sloppy and that it's gotten continuously aggressive today, now constantly changing direction, which is why they have struggled to get any more containment, and they're calling for additional firefighters to come in this evening as the fire continues to be its most dynamic in the northeast portion, burning shrubs, dry grass, and heavy timber. We also checked in with the evacuation shelters earlier today. We went to the assembly hall where 40 of the 100 spots have already been filled. For a full list of the evacuation orders, shelters, and a list of resources, head to our website, abc10.com. We keep you constantly updated. Reporting from the Crozier fire in El Dorado County, Devin Truby, ABC 10.
All right, let's get things over to meteorologist Carly Gomez, because you were tracking all the smoke. We could see some impacts into this weekend.
That's right. We're seeing the smoke now a little closer to home versus that park fire that's up toward Chico. Now we're seeing areas of the Crozier fire and the Silver fire, which is now pretty much under control for that one. But the Crozier fire is still burning in El Dorado County here. That is going to begin impacting us as we start to see some of that smoke moving to the northeast. But as we get a little bit of cooler air moving in toward the weekend, we're starting to see the winds in and out of the area a little bit more rapid in speed. And just take a look at the morning hours. We start to see a lot of the smoke pushing back down toward the valley spots, so a little hazy to start your day. Then into the afternoon, kind of pushes right back out. But as we start moving toward Saturday and Sunday, it's going to kind of linger a little bit longer as we have high pressure in place, kind of keeping things a little more still. Hot temperatures, dry conditions, that will persist at least as we start moving into the weekend before we finally get a better cool down. That's creating a significant fire potential across the area from moderate to dry conditions here. So that's pretty high when it comes to how much brown you're looking at, how dry it is, and where we could see the biggest fire potential in these brown shades. Now in the orange here is more high wind, so this could also take any kind of fire that sparks and drag that much further inland, especially toward the coastal range where we know we also see some pretty pretty breezy conditions. The fire weather concerns still carrying on into the weekend with the dry, gusty weather, but the cooling trend does arrive by Sunday night as that high pressure system will shift to the northeast, and we start to see this trough here beginning to shift its way closer to us, dragging in that cooler air from the Gulf of Alaska, and we'll start to see mostly clear skies as we move through the weekend. Again, the winds playing a factor in that potential fire risk that we could see, or concerns, but below average temperatures are expected for the western U.S. and the West Coast in the next 14 days, which is great news. Upper 90s to low 90s as we move into next week, low 90s even into the following weekend.
All right, Carly, and you already know we want to get you caught up on the news of the day. So after the break, Governor Gavin Newsom addressing the homeless crisis, what he's saying about funding to local governments. Yes, in my backyard. That's what one West El Paso Heights woman is saying in the face of the homelessness crisis. We first brought you the story of Robin Moore and her tiny homes for unhoused families back in 2023. And tonight she gives us an update on her work and shares a very powerful message.
The sound of helping hands and feet fill the courtyard of Safe Harbor, a community of 3 tiny homes for families transitioning out of homelessness.
To date, we have welcomed 34 families into our small community.
Robin Moore is the founder and CEO of We Force of California, the nonprofit that operates Safe Harbor literally in Robin's own backyard. She's adding a second bathroom in the on-site trailer for the families here, in part through a grant from the foundation of ABC 10's parent company, Tegna.
We can have up to 14 people on site. And if you can imagine 14 people sharing one bathroom, especially when a couple of them are teenagers, then the need for a second bathroom is, that's a no-brainer. I can't thank ABC 10 enough.
She tells the young women who come through Safe Harbor,
no one can advocate better for you than you.
It's advice she found herself using this spring during a routine doctor's visit where she felt empowered to mention something happening with her body.
I think I'm spotting. I told it to an assistant who was taking my blood pressure. She looked at me straight, it's a square, and she's like, well, when is the last time you had your cycle? I'm like, 3 years ago. She goes,
The assistant set up a pap smear with the doctor that very visit, a test Robin wasn't due to have for another year.
And that was the beginning of the journey for me to find out that I actually had uterine cancer.
And it was detected early at stage 1.
The next month I had a total hysterectomy. Just last month in July, I had my first chemo session.
It's giving her the best shot at a long, full, cancer-free future.
I'm hoping if anything comes out of what we're doing now is that someone is going to schedule a scan.
Because our bodies need regular maintenance too.
You're worth it.
In Sacramento, Becca Habiger, ABC 10.
And she also encourages people to talk about their family medical history with loved ones. It is, of course, very important. And Robin's nonprofit works with Family Promise of Sacramento to connect with families in need. So to learn more about her Safe Harbor, you can visit abc10.com/links. We have all the info there. All right, now to our homelessness crisis tonight. Governor Gavin Newsom speaking on the efforts across the state to remove encampments today after joining a cleanup in Los Angeles. Now, the governor vowing to start redirecting money if local governments don't start getting results.
If we don't see demonstrable results, I'll start to redirect money. I'm not interested in status quo ante at all. And that will start in January with the January budget. We've been providing the support. Local government embraces those efforts, focuses a sense of urgency, we're going to double down. If local government's not interested, we're fine. We'll redirect the money to parts of the state, cities and counties that are.
And this comes 2 weeks after Newsom signed an executive order following the Supreme Court's Grant Pass decision, directing state agencies to make plans to clean up encampments. And you can read more about that order on our website, abc10.com. Tonight in the race for the White House, former President Donald Trump recommitted to debating Vice President Kamala Harris. ABC News has confirmed that both the Harris and Trump campaigns have agreed to participate in a debate on September 10th. During a news conference today, Trump also said that he wanted to have 2 additional debates with Harris, but it's not clear whether those have been proposed to Harris's campaign. And also new tonight, California State Senator Marie Alvarado Gil says that she is switching to the Republican Party. She had long been a Democrat representing District 4 in the Central Valley. She says that the change is due to her and the Democratic Party moving in different directions. So you can read more on her statement on our website, abc10.com. And stay with us. We're back after this short break. Today is California Panda Day. The San Diego Zoo debuted a new pair of Chinese pandas. Governor Gavin Newsom proclaimed the day to celebrate the zoo as the first organization to establish a cooperative panda conservation program with China. And that is our show for today. Thank you so much for watching and for inviting us into your home. Remember, people are strangers we just haven't got the chance to meet yet. Hey, it's Alex. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. The To The Point team and I love hearing from you, and I hope that you'll stay in touch. And don't forget, you can always email me and the team at tothepoint@abc10.com, or you can even send us a text message at 916-321-3310.